Oh, I forgot to talk about why I didn't call Gundam Unit 4 Gundam Type 4 like Gundam Unit 5. Hi, this is I'll Explain. This is another I'll Explore where I'm going to ramble about Gundam in a less organized manner and an excuse for me to have Gundam Unit 4 and Unit 5 in the same shot because I couldn't find my Gundam Unit 4 when I made a video for Gundam Unit 5. Now I wrote the Gundam Unit 4 script without looking back at the Gundam Unit 5s, mostly because I wanted to try something new, sort of. I tried to shorten the amount of time I spent on, steel frame. Sort of steel frame, my hand's still moving, but for your concern is mostly steel frame. To see if that will improve engagement. And also, without looking at the script for Gundam Unit 5, I should be able to roll something slightly different for Gundam Unit 4, covering their development in a slightly different angle. Hopefully. For you. Like for me, sure, contrast choice, non-contrast choice, yeah. Anyways, you might notice I had significantly less to say about the Mega Beam launcher than the giant Gatling, which is because, surprise surprise, that's sort of the source material. They spent a lot of time explaining why a giant machine gun makes sense on Gundam Unit 5, but for Gundam Unit 4, yeah, it's a Mega Beam launcher. It's a big beam weapon, And it has some troubles, but, it's a big beam weapon. That's as far as they go with it. So, yeah, I didn't even talk about how it have this giant optic. I didn't even talk about how it have this giant optic with a calibration unit on the side and another optic near the stock, because that's kind of the law, and actually another optic at the back as well. Yeah, I didn't talk about any of the features on the Mega Beam launcher because the script is getting long. The side grip is supposed to be foldable, but it's fixed on a Gframe as usual. And to be honest, I am quite surprised they managed to make the carry handle to work with the latch at the back. While for Gundam Unit 5, they have to go with an ugly pig on the side. That is just not law accurate. But Gundam Unit 5 does have the ammo belt, or more like ammo chute to carry the ammo belt, while Gundam Unit 4 has no transfer conduit. Otherwise, these brother machines are basically the same, except for, the cooling system, or rather heat exchange system, because that's how they power the thrusters. As you can see, Gundam Unit 4 have narrower chest vents, while Gundam Unit 5 have practically the same area, but in two giant ducts instead of the single duct on Gundam Unit 4. They never quite explain why that is the case, although it is more to do with remedying the difference. Not really explain, but sort of ease the transition from Gundam Mark II to Zeta Gundam, which also just have ducts for chest vents instead of grills. But interesting enough, these chest designs were in Okawara's illustrations. Not way before, but somewhere around the time they developed mobile suit designs for Zeta Gundam. So Okawara have these ideas and just push them into Zeta Gundam, and years later Bandai dug them out and put them as part of the missing link. Well, the game these guys appear in isn't the missing link, but sort of leading towards that. Which leads to the part where I talk about Gundam Unit 4 having different endings, quote unquote, for the 1 year war or in the 1 year war. Because in the game, you could lose Gundam Unit 4, but not always, while Gundam Unit 5 would always survive. Interesting enough, follow-up manga does not deal with that either. They suggest, Gundam Unit 4 exploded, but they don't go outright calling Gundam Unit 4 or its pilots being lost. On the report they are missing, MIA, but what happened to them is not solid. I was going into a tangent about how game endings would give me problem writing scripts, but well, considering I already did Mudrock and this, and I had some plan for other Gundam that appear in games first, that's not a big problem. And to be honest, the manga adaptation is sort of the canon version of the story. Like I said, sort of acknowledge that there is a middle ground between different endings, so that's not a big problem. Now, it is interesting that the game story decided to put two Gundam in a team, like Tomino and Okawara originally intended, on another Pegasus class. But I think that is as far as the references goes. Oh, another thing that Unit 4 is missing is the beam rifle. I have no idea why Gundam Unit 5 just get a lot more plastic in general compared to Unit 4. Maybe because Bandai already had most of the mold made, that's why they can afford to include more plastic for Unit 5, I don't know. Or they are just biased to Unit 5. After all, Unit 5 is the official one that survived, while Unit 4 is MIA, mostly. Both of these Gframes are missing their shield, which is unfortunate because the shield design is somewhere between the traditional coffin shield and the newer thinner shield, and it's also different from the NT1 one, so kinda sad to not see it here, but I kinda understand. Not sure if FA would put that in, but I also want Gframe to have some significant, makeover, significant overhaul before they continue, because they, like FA did a lot of right by not having open-ended thighs and bicep armor, but that is least of these guys' problem. I wouldn't say big problem, but for low accuracy, not having most of the loadout and can't get the rest of the loadout in the rest of the set is kind of upsetting. Like for example, if they would release these guys along with RX-80, which share the same shield sort of, or have the same shield in some of their design, would help out the situation. Another one is how much or how many parts has to be hand painted in the factory, which I think from our exploration with the Shock Gundam series, Super Shock Gundam series, Bandai is completely capable of doing 3 or 5 colors for a candy toy setup. So I don't know, maybe the yellow here could be remedied with stickers, but the shoulder ones can be separate parts along with the antenna. You know, just throwing out some ideas. In fact, having the yellow parts for the thrusters would allow you to do yellow antennas and have a, I don't want to say sticker, but you know, it is not as bad as you thought even for this smaller scale. But either way, Gframe is still a good line for Bandai to push out some of the, I don't want to say obscured because it's kind of overused these days. Like the games were quite big in the PS2 era or PS3 era, to be honest. And these guys were stars of lots of other cross-platform games. So they're not exactly obscured, but they are not super mainstream. I like the idea of using Gframe to test out some of these suits, but the fact that Bandai already had these guys made in MG back in the day and had P Bandai HG, maybe Gframe can do something. Okay, on one hand, Gframe is this collection that's supposed to be so cheaper. But on the other hand, they also have pretty legitimately great sculpt and interpretation of these mobile suits that I just feel like they can be treated better. And yeah, I had Gundam rollout color on the side, supposedly trying to do a comparison video, but I figure I will do that much later when we get to some branching development arc for the RX-78. Oh, I forgot to talk about why I didn't call Gundam Unit 4 Gundam Type 4 like Gundam Unit 5. That is because there are several Gundam Type 4. Like I said, the G4 project is supposed to have a 4th type Gundam for every, not quite division, armed forces. It should have a 4th type Gundam for every armed forces. So for me to call Gundam Unit 4 Gundam Type 4 or RX-78 Type 4 would actually throw in a wrench in the argument, especially they don't have a Earth Federation HQ designation. They only have Federation Space Force or Earth Force or Army or Ground Force. Kind of inconsistent, but then Navy and Air Force is pretty consistent. Sometimes called Naval Force, but either way, there isn't a EFHQ or the use of EFF wasn't a thing in 1 year war. It's usually EFSF or EFEF or EFGF. Mostly because they kind of skirt over how Department of Ground also have Air Force and Department of Earth also have Air Force and Navy, but they often got overlooked. But in not quite a deeper slope, but in another layer in, slightly behind the cover, original documents, they do still have Air Force and Navy. That's how we get Gundam Diver or Gundam Marine Type, but you know. So there's that. See you next time.